When we divorced, my husband wanted to fight for custody of our daughter. You're just a housewife. You have no ability to provide a better life for our daughter. Our daughter gave me a look, then sweetly said to her dad, Daddy, Nora also wants to live with you. But Anna Lane would be unhappy if she saw me. How about I stay with Mom and you give a little more child support each month? I'm afraid Mom might starve me. Philip angrily took our daughter downstairs. They deliberately avoided me, and I didn't dare follow them. I could only watch from the second-floor window as my ex-husband angrily lit a cigarette and smoked. Nora, do you really want to live with your mother? She's been kept at home by me all these years, a woman who can't do anything. What kind of future do you have following her? His voice was tinged with irritation, but my daughter's face was full of innocence. But Dad, Aunt Elaine doesn't like me. So if we have some conflict, I don't mind taking the blame. Aunt Elaine is pregnant, and if it affects my little brother, what then? They're both Dad's children. You can't treat them unequally. The innocent voice of my daughter made a flicker of guilt cross Philip's face. After all, he hadn't divorced me yet, and already the mistress's belly was growing. What my daughter said, seemingly without intention, was like a sharp stab right into his heart. I couldn't bear to listen any longer and returned to the sofa, sitting there blankly as tears fell. My mother-in-law watched the scene with interest and said, What's there to cry about? Look at yourself. You have no job, no connections, and you're still thinking about your daughter. If you really loved her, you'd let her choose a better life. My daughter and Philip had somehow already gone upstairs. Philip gave my mother-in-law a helpless look. Mom, could you say a little less? Then he saw me with red eyes and, feeling a bit sorry, turned his head aside. I've agreed with Nora that the custody will be yours. The car and the house we're living in now will be yours, plus $300,000 in cash and $5,000 a month for living expenses. Elaine's pregnancy is too obvious to hide now, so we need to get divorced as soon as possible. He paused. Let's do it tomorrow. I said nothing. Although I was the one determined to divorce, the household salary card had always been in Philip's hands, and I had no idea about the division of property. At that moment, my daughter spoke up. Dad, you should keep the car. You're a big boss at the company. How can you manage without a car? Hearing my daughter's words, my tears burst forth even more fiercely. They say a daughter is her father's little cotton-padded jacket. It seems that even when she's with me, her heart leans more toward her dad. Besides, Aunt Elaine is pregnant now, so having a car would definitely be more convenient. Why don't you just cash it out to Mom? The car cost over $500,000 when it was bought. Dad, you can just round it up and give her $600,000. Philip hesitated for a moment, but seeing his daughter's innocent face, he agreed. Tomorrow at 10, remember to remind your mom not to oversleep. Philip left with my mother-in-law. Listening to the roar of the car downstairs, I almost uncontrollably burst into tears. 3 years of dating, 10 years of marriage. We met in college and supported each other through the most beautiful and tender times of our lives. When we got married, we also said, united in heart, never to leave or abandon each other. I never thought this journey would eventually come to an end. Mom, my clothes have a little tear. My daughter's call pulled my distant thoughts back. Following my daughter's gaze, sure enough, there were 2 small holes at the hem of her dress. I'll go find a needle and thread to mend it for you. Saying that, I hurriedly got up. At this moment, my daughter looked a bit aggrieved. Mom, we're about to become rich. Isn't it okay to buy 2 new outfits at the mall? She had a point. My daughter grabbed my hand, and we took a taxi to a nearby mall. But instead of rushing to the children's clothing section, she started browsing store by store in the women's section. She picked up a coat and asked me to try it on. Mom, you shouldn't always wear those dull gray colors. Bright colors like this really highlight your charm. I took the coat and looked it over. It was indeed a very pretty light blue. But after getting married, in order to make housework more convenient, I mostly chose dark colors, and before I knew it, it had become a habit. At my daughter's suggestion, I bought that coat for myself and picked out 2 sets of sportswear for her. On the way back, I couldn't help but hesitate before speaking. Nora, even though your father and I are divorced, that's between us. You don't need to take those conflicts to heart. After all, He is still your father. Mom, I don't hate him, and I hope you don't either. People have to face new lives and not stay stuck in the past. Under the streetlight, my daughter's shining eyes were like brilliant stars in the sky, sparkling brightly. That night, I didn't sleep at all, and in the morning my daughter came to knock on the door. Mom, we should go to the Civil Affairs Bureau now. Hearing my daughter's voice outside the door, I couldn't help but laugh and cry at the same time. Why did it feel like she was more eager about the divorce than I was? I opened the door. This is an adult matter. You should hurry up and go to school. My daughter showed a look of grievance. Mom, I've already been on winter break for 3 days. I was stunned for a moment. I had been so absorbed in my own emotions that I paid very little attention to my daughter. I hadn't even noticed that her winter break had started. I reached out to stroke her head, about to apologize. But she happily said, Mom, if you really feel guilty, why don't you take me out to play? I heard this winter is very cold. We could go somewhere warm to spend it. How about it? Watching my daughter snuggle up to me and act coquettish, I felt as if the gloom in my heart had been greatly dispelled, and I smiled as I agreed to her. We went to the Civil Affairs Bureau together. But to my surprise, Philip had actually arrived before us, with Elaine trailing behind him, her face full of hostility. We haven't even officially divorced yet, and he's already so eager to assert his claim. Good morning, Elaine, my daughter said, seemingly sensing my awkwardness and taking the initiative to greet her. Elaine, it's so cold today, and you're still following my dad to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Be careful not to let my little brother catch a cold. Philip, look at your daughter, Elaine said with a wronged expression, her pregnant belly sticking out as she sought Philip's help. But the daughter's eyes immediately welled up with tears. Dad, Elaine misunderstood me again. I'm worried about my little brother's health. Elaine can disregard her own body in this cold weather, but what about the baby in her belly getting cold? Philip shot Elaine a displeased glance. What harm could a child like her possibly mean? She only wants what's best for you. Elaine wanted to say more, but Philip waved his hand impatiently. Enough, go stay in the car. I thought I could leave as soon as the divorce papers were done, but who knew there would now be a 1-month cooling-off period after the divorce? Philip drove over and said, It's so cold. Don't stand here in the wind trying to get a taxi. I'll take you all back. I was about to politely refuse to keep some dignity, but my daughter had already opened the car door and pushed me inside. Yeah, it's too cold. Besides, Mom hasn't officially divorced Dad yet. Let Dad take us back first. My feet are freezing stiff. My daughter and I sat in the back seat, while Elaine sat in the front passenger seat that used to be mine. She pouted playfully and said, Honey, to celebrate your divorce, how about we go out for a big feast later? Philip nodded, and Elaine pretended to hesitate as she asked, So where should we celebrate? Should we go for French cuisine or Western food? Nora leaned over at just the right moment, her big innocent eyes wide open as she said, Elaine, let's go to that French place. It's especially delicious. Whenever there's something to celebrate in our family, my dad always takes Mom and me there. Oh, and the membership card for that restaurant is in my mom's name, so if you go, don't forget to give them my mom's phone number. Seeing Elaine's face in the rearview mirror, as dark as the bottom of a pot, I couldn't help but twitch the corner of my mouth. My daughter kept going, Mom, how about we set our travel destination to Thailand? Not only are there seas and coconut groves, but also lots of handsome guys with 8-pack abs who don't wear shirts. Seeing how stable Dad and Elaine's relationship is, maybe you could meet a new man in Thailand too. Philip glanced at me through the rearview mirror and suddenly asked, Planning to go on a trip? I really didn't want to talk to him much, so I gave a perfunctory nod and pretended to focus on my phone. Philip went on by himself, Thailand's fine. I have a friend who runs a hotel there, a 4-star hotel. You can stay for free, and I'll arrange the top-tier suite for you. Nora happily leaned in. Really?
I knew Dad was the best.
Philip, while steering the wheel, patted Nora's head. You're also Dad's most caring little sweetheart. Seeing them like this, with such a picture of fatherly love and filial devotion, Elaine's face grew even darker. The next day after returning home, my daughter and I packed our things, ready to go to Thailand. My daughter, who hadn't gone out to play for a long time, was overjoyed. She spent the entire afternoon just planning the trip and even carefully picked out 2 sets of swimsuits for me. At 14, a girl is still full of childlike innocence, and when it comes to playing, she seems to have endless energy. After breakfasting on the hotel's hamburgers and steak, we dove into all kinds of water activities. By the end of the day, I was sore all over, but my ears were filled with my daughter's laughter, leaving no room for unhappy thoughts. After returning from Thailand, it took me several days to finally fall asleep, completely free from the sleepless nights I had endured right after the divorce. When we got home, I had planned to rest for a few days, but at that very moment, my daughter came up with a new idea. "Mom, you should learn to make desserts. The ones outside are expensive and taste awful." I looked at my daughter helplessly. Even though I was immersed in sadness, I could tell she was trying every possible way to help me move past the shadow of the divorce. Although I made a mistake choosing a husband, at least my daughter and I are united in heart. What is there to complain about? Although the new year is approaching, I still plan to find a job first. Philip was quite quick. He transferred a total of $900,000 to my account. That sounds like a lot, but without a source of income, it's just a matter of living off savings. After all, my daughter's various tutoring fees add up to $200,000 a year, not to mention daily expenses. But after being a full-time housewife for so many years, I had long since lost touch with society. There were many companies I couldn't even get into. I could only tentatively talk with my daughter about whether I should first find a sales clerk job near home. The pay wouldn't be high, but even ants are meat. My daughter thought for a moment, then said, "Seriously, if you want to go out to work, of course I support you. But finding a job is just like getting married. You can wait longer if you have to, but you can't settle just because you're in a hurry." She was clearly still a child, but her words were so mature it made me want to laugh. I flicked her nose. "You little thing. Why do you sound like such a little adult?" My daughter proudly lifted her chin. "Just admit I'm right. Meaningless work and relationships are just drains. They're a waste of time." I thought about it, and my daughter's point was indeed quite reasonable. Seeing the hesitation soften on my face, she seized the moment. "Mom, you can put the job hunting on hold for now. There's one thing that absolutely can't be delayed." "What is it?" "Of course, it's to stop my tutoring classes. I'm almost turning into a fool from all the studying." Under my daughter's coaxing, I reluctantly decided to temporarily suspend her piano lessons and math classes. We'd resumed them during the summer break and let her truly relax this winter vacation. Hearing this, my daughter was overjoyed and even took the initiative to complete 2 sets of English test papers. Through this experience, I began to consult her on many matters, making decisions together on everything. Gradually, our life started to get back on track. One afternoon, I was uploading a video of the dessert I made onto the platform. My daughter came over and asked me, "Mom, what are you doing?" I said, "Isn't your aunt a store review blogger?" Last time, she edited the dessert I made into a video, and a lot of people liked it. I'm thinking of taking her advice and seeing if I can become a food blogger. "Mom, this is better than your job. I can help you manage the account." To be honest, I was truly tempted. Kids these days, having spent so much time on video apps, really do understand the tricks better than we do. My daughter has always been very clever, and I have skills. I don't expect to have millions of fans. As long as I have over 10,000, occasionally taking a couple of ads would be enough to help support our household expenses. Then I'll go learn from Auntie. If you, Mom, can really make it work, you can even support each other's traffic with Auntie. After saying that, my daughter excitedly called my sister. If I were to say what I've gained from these years as a housewife, it would be the skill of cooking in all sorts of creative ways. The desserts I make have never been criticized by any relatives or friends. With the help of my daughter and sister, my personal account gradually started gaining traffic. I not only shared the process of making desserts, but also made some pastries, vacuum-packed them, and sent them to fans in nearby cities. Bit by bit, the shop accumulated quite a few loyal customers. Coupled with the advertising fees I received each month, my scattered income in the early stages surprisingly reached around $3,000 a month, which was already very satisfying for someone just starting an account. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed, and Philip still hadn't taken the initiative to bring up going to the Civil Affairs Bureau. I had no choice but to contact him first to expedite the dissolution of our marriage. However, on the other end of the phone, Philip stammered, "Irene, I regret it. I don't want to divorce you." My heart suddenly skipped a beat. It's a bit embarrassing to admit, but it was Philip who first brought up divorce between us. I pleaded with him for a long time, which only strengthened his resolve. Yet in the meantime, he had moments of hesitation about not divorcing, and at those times, it was I who insisted on going through with it. At first, I was reluctant to divorce because I couldn't bear to let go of the years of connection we shared. But later, when I calmed down and thought it through carefully, I realized we never really had love. Every day when he came home, all he did was complain and find fault with me, constantly saying I was a woman who did nothing but laze around at home. If there really was any reluctance, it was only about losing me as a free babysitter. After all, whenever I asked for an extra $100 for groceries, I had to carefully watch his expression. Now that Elaine's belly was growing bigger by the day, and she probably couldn't wait any longer, hearing him say something like that on the phone caught me off guard. Only after I pressed him for the reason did Philip, feigning deep affection on the other end of the line, say, "You've always been in my heart." Strange. Even though I no longer had any feelings for this person, the moment he said that, tears almost fell from my eyes. In the first few years after we got married, we clearly weren't like this. Back then, his career was just starting to take off. Although he traveled frequently for work, no matter which city he landed in, the first thing he did was call me to check in, and he would bring me little gifts when he came home. When exactly did things change? I couldn't say. Seeing my silence on the phone, Philip thought his heartfelt words had moved me and shamelessly continued, "Irene, can we not get a divorce? Nora is going through puberty now. She needs a complete family." I sneered and said, "If you really cared about your daughter's feelings, you wouldn't have chosen to cheat during the marriage. The damage done is irreparable, and everyone must pay the price for their own choices." After hanging up the phone, my heart still couldn't settle. So I secretly asked a friend to find out what had been happening with Philip recently. It was only then that I learned that the clothing factory Philip runs was facing a serious cash flow problem. It turned out that half a month ago, Elaine had quit her initial receptionist job, claiming that pregnancy made her unfit for work, and insisted on working at Philip's factory instead. But she was just a vase with beauty, unable to understand anything, and liked to boss around the veteran employees. In just a week at the factory, Elaine had already fired several veteran employees. The factory's growth was inseparable from these veteran employees, but Elaine didn't understand their true value. She only felt that they were defying her, so she fired them without even giving the basic severance pay. The long-time employees ended up holding a grudge. As for this batch of mass-produced goods made by the employees, either the stitching was rough or the fit was off. The client outright refused to accept the goods and even demanded compensation for the losses. This client was a new partner, and they weren't even given a chance to redo the work. Philip had to dig into all his assets just to barely cover the hole. What made things worse was that the few veteran workers Elaine fired had been with Philip since the startup days, and many long-time clients had come through them. Now that word has spread about what happened at the factory, many old clients are unwilling to continue working with Philip. This puts Philip in a difficult position. His recent claim that he doesn't want a divorce is mostly because he feels Elaine isn't cut out for married life and he wants to avoid paying the hefty costs that would come with a divorce. Moreover, to make a comeback, the capital needed was far more than just $1 million. So the house that was given to me during the divorce became the best bargaining chip. But old habits die hard. Wasn't it always said that his mistress was beautiful and clever? Then let his mistress bring those old masters back. If they want to take my money, I'm no fool. Since Philip is determined to drag things out and refuses to divorce, I will choose to take legal action if necessary. My daughter also handed me a crucial card at a critical moment, evidence of Philip's affair. It was during the last conversation between my daughter and Philip downstairs, where, under my daughter's guidance, he personally admitted to having an affair during the marriage and that his mistress was already pregnant. I really didn't expect my daughter to have such a card up her sleeve. I sent the audio to Philip, making it clear that I had recorded the conversation at the door myself, not wanting to involve my daughter. Philip soon showed up at the doorstep, looking at me with utter disappointment. After all, we're still husband and wife. Do you really have to make such a scene? I looked at his familiar yet strange face and said coldly, Philip, don't talk to me about feelings. What kind of feelings do we even have between us? In the end, the two of us still went to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get the divorce certificate. Although his factory hadn't gone bankrupt, with no orders and employees on leave, plus a large amount of penalty fees to pay, all these accumulated to make him look 10 years older than when we first divorced, no longer the spirited man he once was. At parting, Philip shamelessly pulled me into the car. A day as husband and wife is 100 days of grace, and besides, we have a daughter together. Can I at least drive you home? The plea in his eyes was unmistakable. From what I know of Philip, this was definitely not about being unwilling to let go of our relationship, but that he had something to ask of me. I was curious to see what he would say. I sat in the passenger seat, and Philip began rubbing the steering wheel incessantly. He didn't speak the entire way. Just as we were about to reach home, he tentatively asked, about the $1 million I owe you, can I pay you back a little later? I nodded and spoke with a hint of satisfaction in his eyes, but I'm not a philanthropist, and there's no sentiment between us. If you delay for a month, you owe interest for that month, and this interest will be notarized and written into the contract to prevent you from defaulting. Do you have any objections? My decisive tone caught Philip off guard for a moment. He gave a bitter smile and said, Darling, you've changed so much from how you used to be. I smiled. Philip, we're divorced now. Please call me by my name. Don't forget, before we got married, I was also the company's second-in-command. I willingly chose to return to the family for you, but that's no excuse for you to ignore my efforts. I don't regret being your choice, but I will never go back down that road again. After my divorce from Philip, I devoted more of my energy to managing my account. My daughter even enlisted her classmates to help promote it. Because the account was gaining good traffic, it received support from the platform. By the third month, I already had 50,000 followers. For this, I specifically hired a college student to edit videos. Their creativity was sharp. Whether it was small titles or video thumbnails, they were far more eye-catching than anything I could design myself. As my followers grew, my workload became increasingly busy. Sometimes I had to create at least 2 or 3 different new desserts a day. I often attended training institutions to learn and took fans' suggestions into consideration. Things were gradually taking off on my side, but Philip's life was a complete mess. In order to get Elaine to apologize to the senior employees, he gave her quite a few perks. But Elaine's spoiled nature showed. After saying just a couple of soft words and getting snapped back at, she caused a scene in their home and even broke the senior employee's TV. In the end, Philip had to pick Elaine up from the police station and paid full price to compensate for the broken TV. At the police station door, Elaine kept cursing nonstop, and Philip, both angry and disgusted, turned and kicked her calf, shouting angrily, "You reckless woman! Why don't you shut up already?" Elaine's belly was large, and her body was already heavy. With Philip's kick, she lost her balance and fell straight down. The child was lost in a miscarriage. After the incident at the factory, the child had been Philip's only reason to stay with Elaine. Now that reason was gone, and Philip didn't hesitate to break up with her. He withdrew, but Elaine's uterus was damaged due to the late-term abortion, and she could never conceive again. When my daughter heard the news, she excitedly dragged me out for a big feast to celebrate. She said, "This is karma." I nodded and took my daughter to enjoy a lavish buffet. Those who betray and abandon loyalty will not even earn a shred of mercy from heaven. What gives me a headache is that ever since Philip broke off with Elaine, he's been sticking to me like a stubborn leech. He keeps sending fresh flowers to my home and even bought me a gold ring on my birthday. It's truly laughable. He used to despise that woman the most, not even willing to buy her a single piece of clothing. But after the divorce, he suddenly turned romantic, constantly making advances with the same earnestness as when they first fell in love. My daughter also sensed something was wrong and tentatively asked me, Mom, will you and Dad make up? I looked listlessly at the gold ring in my hand. I remembered that before Philip and I divorced, I had subtly expressed to him that I wanted a ring. At that time, gold wasn't expensive. A ring weighing about 2 grams cost just over 1,000 yuan. Yet he angrily scolded me all day for not earning money at home and only knowing how to spend it, saying I didn't understand how hard things were for him outside. The irony was that after so many years of marriage, I didn't even have a single piece of jewelry worth showing off. In the first year of our marriage, all the money I had was used to support Philip's initial startup. Later, he bought Elaine bigger and more expensive gold earrings. Actually, sometimes it's not that men are unwilling to spend money. It's just that deep down, they feel you don't deserve it. I glanced at my daughter, so full of innocence, and in truth, how much I longed to give her a complete family. Nora, to you, Philip is a good father, but to me, he is not a good husband. I cannot take away your rights and duties as a child, but I hope you will support your mother's decision not to remarry. I may not have fully considered that you need a complete family, I said, my voice growing heavy with emotion. At that moment, my daughter gently embraced me. Mom, if I only thought about myself and not you, that would be truly selfish. What I've learned tells me that a woman is first and foremost herself, and only then a mother and a wife. Tears slipped down my cheeks uncontrollably. I hadn't realized that my little daughter possessed such clarity and openness. With my daughter's support, I finally gathered the courage to have a frank conversation with Philip. I arranged to meet. I hadn't planned to bring my daughter along because I had already made up my mind that if communication with Philip proved impossible, I wouldn't hesitate to have a big argument with him. But I really didn't want my daughter to witness such a scene. Yet my daughter insisted on coming with me. When we arrived at the restaurant, Philip had been waiting at the table for quite some time, with carefully selected roses placed on the table. The gold ring on his hand, a symbol of his status, had also been replaced with a couple rings we bought when we first started dating. Seeing me walk in with my daughter, a look of excitement flashed in his eyes. Before he could even invite us to sit down, my daughter said with a hint of schadenfreude, Dad, Aunt Elaine is really bad at taking care of people. It hasn't even been long since the divorce, and you've already become like this, looking 10 years older. It seems that young and beautiful women are like roses with thorns. Not everyone can handle them. Philip's smile froze on his face, looking utterly ridiculous. Throughout the entire meal, Philip kept watching the intimate interaction between my daughter and me, feeling like an out-of-place outsider. Several times, Philip tried to break into the conversation between my daughter and me, but each time, she brushed him off with a sharp retort. In the end, Philip's tears betrayed him, streaming down as he kept murmuring regrets and wishes to turn back time. My daughter handed him a piece of paper, without expression. Dad, no one stays in the same place waiting for you forever. I sighed, about to use this moment to clear things up with Philip, when suddenly, a disheveled figure rushed around the corner of the restaurant. Almost without any hesitation, she snatched the hot dish from the waiter's hand and splashed it toward me. I screamed, but had no time to dodge. Instead, my daughter quickly pulled out her coat from behind and held it up in front of me. I was unharmed, but my daughter's hands were burned bright red, which made my heart ache terribly. Only then did I realize that this disheveled, wild woman was actually Elaine. Philip had already pulled her away, but she was still hysterically cursing, "You shameless vixen. We're already divorced, so why do you keep clinging to my man?" These remarks immediately attracted a crowd of onlookers, and some busybodies even took out their phones to record. Philip held Elaine with one hand to keep her from acting out, while rubbing his forehead impatiently with the other. How many times do I have to tell you? It's over between us. Who would want to live with a woman like you, who only knows how to cause trouble? The child is gone, and I've already compensated you. Besides, what right does a homewrecker like you have to call other seductresses? Elaine looked at Philip with tear-filled eyes. Do you think money can just settle this? I'm a woman who can't have children. Who do you expect me to marry in the future? I don't care. I want you to be responsible for the rest of my life. Their daughter interrupted impatiently. That's your business, not my mom's. Please don't drag her into this. Mom, let's go. They brought this on themselves. We shouldn't get involved in their mess. I was about to turn and leave, pulled by my daughter, when I saw Elaine pick up the broken porcelain shards from the floor. Her face twisted in rage as she lunged at my daughter. Why am I not allowed to have children? You still have a daughter. I want you to be like me, never to have descendants. I instinctively stepped in front of my daughter, the shards grazing my neck. In just a few seconds, everything began to blur. Before I closed my eyes, I thought I heard my daughter's hysterical screams and Elaine's frantic figure. I don't remember how long I slept, only that when I woke, my daughter's eyes were bloodshot. Seeing that I had woken up, my daughter finally let out the breath she had been holding. Fortunately, Elaine had only casually picked up a piece of broken porcelain from the floor, which wasn't particularly sharp. The shard only grazed my collarbone and didn't touch the artery in my neck. But a scar was inevitable. My daughter gritted her teeth, insisting that Elaine must be sent to prison, but after this incident, I truly didn't want any further involvement with Philip. A man who talks about remarrying me, but doesn't even stand up for me in a crisis. How could I entrust him with the rest of my life? Only Elaine could treat him like a treasure. I told Philip to give me all the remaining money, and I didn't want any so-called interest. At first, Philip didn't want to give it, but when he saw I had evidence of his affair in my hands, he had no choice but to grit his teeth and scrape together the money so as not to affect future business. I heard he even sold the house where the old lady now lives and some gold and silver jewelry she had saved up, which made the old lady curse loudly by the roadside. But none of that was my concern anymore. I arranged for my daughter to transfer schools, sold the house we were living in, and moved with her to another city. After all, it was just too unsafe to stay here any longer. Before I moved, Elaine came to see me once more. I didn't pursue any legal action against her. A woman like that, if she ended up with nothing 10 years from now, would surely do something to me and my daughter. You can't drive a dog into a dead-end alley. I've always understood this truth. Before Elaine could speak, my daughter cut in. "Aunt Elaine, my mom didn't press criminal charges because she truly understands how hard it is to be a woman. But that doesn't mean you can be ungrateful, right? What does my mom have to do with you ending up like this? She's just a poor woman whose husband cheated on her. She cut ties with my dad long ago. It was clearly my dad who was fickle and indecisive. If you could have an affair with my dad while he was still married, then you should have known what kind of man he really is." Elaine laughed, utterly distraught. My daughter and I exchanged a glance and hastened the moving process. The story between Philip and me has ended. From now on, I will embrace a beautiful life with my daughter. As for Elaine and Philip, this pair of resentful lovers, their relationship is just beginning. I'm sure their future will be chaotic. With Elaine clinging to Philip relentlessly, he will never be able to start a new relationship. But never underestimate the resolve of a woman who is nothing. But what does this have to do with my daughter and me? This new year, I plan to take my daughter abroad to experience the thrill of splurging with money in hand. The end of the story.